Protests against restrictions against those who haven't received the coronavirus vaccine in Germany took place after the government introduced new measures to tackle the new variant of the coronavirus, Omicron. As announced by the German health minister, the German government is planning to put a permanent system in place to purchase and provide shots rapidly at any given time in order to prevent new outbreaks. Last summer, Germany had to close large vaccination centers in several states due to a low demand for the coronavirus vaccine. On Saturday, the country reported over 55,000 new infections, 2 times as many as 1 week earlier. In Italy, hundreds gathered to protest against mandatory vaccination for people over the age of 50 and stricter rules for the unvaccinated. Under the new regulations, from January 10th, those who are unvaccinated will not be able to use public transport or go to restaurants, hotels, or ski lifts. On January 5th, Italy made COVID-19 vaccination mandatory for people over the age of 50. The Italian government had already made vaccination mandatory for teachers and health workers. And since October last year, all employees have had to be vaccinated or show a negative test before entering the workplace. Italy reported over 197,000 COVID-19 cases on Saturday. Around 74% of Italians have so far received at least 2 vaccination shots. In France, thousands took to the streets to denounce President Emmanuel Macron's intent to piss off people refusing COVID-19 shots by tightening curbs on their civil liberties. In the opinion of the French president, unvaccinated people are irresponsible and unworthy of being considered citizens. In Paris, protesters were taunted by adopting his wording, chanting, "We'll piss you off."
It is extremely serious that the president says that he wanted to piss off the unvaccinated. The population hates him.
The protesters accused Macron of trampling on their freedoms and treating citizens unequally. France recorded more than 300,000 new coronavirus infections for the second time in a week on Friday. People in France already have to show either proof of vaccination or a negative test to enter restaurants and bars and to use trains.
Before the second week of Dakar Rally in Saudi Arabia, Nasser Al-Attiyah and Sam Sunderland, leaders of the race, are recharging and feeling good about the upcoming days. Brit Sam Sunderland leads the bike category and is currently 2 minutes and 39 seconds ahead of Australian Matthias Walkner.
Yeah, for sure. It's try not to think about that too much and just focus on day by day, you know. Obviously, it's nice to be leading the Dakar Rally as ever, and halfway point it means not so much, but in the same time it's better to start in front than start at the back, you know, and just try and manage it well from now on and keep doing what I've been doing.
Nasser Al-Attiyah has a significant advantage over his rivals Yazid Al-Raihi and Sebastian Loeb. He's currently 48 minutes ahead of Saudi Arabia's racer.
No, it's okay, you know, we are quite happy, you know, and I hope, you know, to win this race, you know, because for the team really we fight a lot, you know, last 2 years, you know, to win here in Saudi Arabia, but now we have a good lead and we try to do our best.
On Sunday, the racers will ride 62 miles of dunes toward Al Dawadimi, which is about 100 kilometers, as the race resumes with stage 7.
The baby, Sohail Ahmadi, was only 2 months old when he went missing on August 19th, when thousands of people rushed to flee Afghanistan, the government of which had been taken over by the Taliban. The boy was in Kabul when 29-year-old taxi driver Hamid Safi found him at the airport and took him home to raise him as his own. After more than 7 weeks of negotiation and pleas, and ultimately a brief detention by the Taliban police, Safi finally gave the child to his cheerful grandfather and other relatives who are still in Kabul. During the family evacuation, young Sohail, whose dad was a U.S. Embassy security guard, was lost after being briefly handed over to an unidentified soldier. Later, 29-year-old Safi found Sohail alone and crying on the ground.
I entered the airport and saw a baby was lying down on the ground in a very bad condition. I looked around and showed this child to many people, but I couldn't find anyone related to the child. I called my wife at home, then I refused to go to America. I brought the child home, I bought him milk, and we have been taking care of this child since that time.
After their story was made public, some of Safi's neighbors, who had spotted his return from the airport with the baby a few months earlier, recognized the photos and posted comments about his whereabouts in a translated version of the article reporting of the incident.
Today is a historical day for us, as I received my grandson in front of the media and the handover of this child has been pressed. I'm so grateful from the media who helped us to reach and receive this child.
Ahmadi asked his relatives who are still in Afghanistan, including his father-in-law, to find Safi and ask him to return to Ohio to the family.
Hello and welcome. I'm Don Arleth, and this is Border Report. Once again, rocks and firecrackers were thrown at Polish forces on the border with Belarus. More groups of migrants tried to enter Poland by force. One of the border guard officers sustained a head wound and was taken to the hospital. Warrant Officer Szymon Mościcki from the National Border Guard headquarters gave us an update.
Yesterday was quite peaceful. 10 people tried to cross the border illegally. All of them were turned back. But we've had a number of incidents today. Just after midnight, 2 citizens of India swam across the river Świsłocz in the region of the Bobrowniki post. They were stopped on the Polish side. Obviously, they were soaking wet, so we took care of them. They underwent medical examination. Their condition was good. They received dry, warm clothes, food and beverages. Another incident took place near the Cheremcha post, where a group of very aggressive foreigners tried to forcibly cross the border. They threw different objects like stones, bricks and branches at the Polish soldiers. Additionally, flashbang grenades were thrown to the Polish side. Naturally, Belarusian soldiers took an active part in this, supporting the foreigners and throwing dangerous objects at our soldiers and trying to blind them with torches and strobe lights. The foreigners cut the concertina wire and crossed into Poland. Ultimately, we stopped 11 people and turned them back to the border. As a result of this incident, a female border guard officer suffered a head injury. She has a broken nose. She received first aid, and then an ambulance took her to hospital for specialist examination, including neurological tests. Another incident took place in the area of responsibility of our Szudziałów branch. Our officers were on an observation tower when, thanks to specialist equipment, they were able to notice a group preparing to cross into Poland from Belarus. A patrol was sent there and 16 people were stopped, including 14 citizens of Iraq and 2 citizens of India. These particular foreigners were also aggressive and they threw things at the Polish soldiers. They were all stopped and escorted back to the border. Fortunately, this time nobody was hurt.
And now let's move closer to the border with Belarus. Michał Hetman is near Siemiatycze and has been checking out what the soldiers are concentrating on now.
Sadly, thanks to the Belarusian services, we've become used to every night bringing new attempts to cross the border. Right now, everyone is in position, the patrols are out there, and they are on the lookout to see if those people are trying to cross the border again. Let me come back to the issue of Cheremcha. This particular region is very popular with the migrants and the Belarusian services. Since the very beginning of the migration crisis, they've made over 5,000 attempts to cross the border there. Since the beginning of the crisis, some 20 Polish service members have been injured, including police, border guard and army. The police are the second line of defense, patrolling the roads, big and small, and apprehending the smugglers who are trying to get those migrants to Western Europe. Let me remind you that this is punishable with up to 8 years of imprisonment. In total, there have been nearly 40,000 attempts to cross the border illegally since the beginning of the crisis.
Stanisław Żaden, spokesman for the Minister Coordinator of Special Services, tweeted on Twitter a summary of the disinformation campaign that the Lukashenko regime waged against Poland over the past several months. The spokesman also gave specific examples of the absurdities and lies that Belarus used as propaganda.
As the entry reads, 2021 saw a strong intensification of the Belarusian anti-Western propaganda, which pursued a narrative identical to the Russian disinformation attacks. Poland was one of its main targets. In late December, a Belarusian portal involved in the dissemination of anti-Polish content published an article containing points typical of the attacks on Poland. The article referred to the support given by the European Union during the Lukashenko regime's aggression. The author criticized the EU for the support it gave to the Polish, Lithuanian and Latvian authorities and accused the EU of using warlike rhetoric. This is very typical of how the Kremlin and Minsk use propaganda to try and force the EU into submission over the issue of the migration route from Belarus, as well as trying to isolate the attacked countries within the EU. Moreover, the text